Hey guys, welcome back to the Stick Figure Historian. So, Alfred has just become king, and right off the bat, things are pretty hard for him. While he's attending his brother's funeral, the Vikings scored another victory against the army while he was gone. And even though the following month he managed to rally the men back together and make another stand at Wilton, this also proved a disaster. Peace was made between the invaders and the men of Wessex, and even though we don't know for sure what the terms of the treaty were, it's safe to guess that Alfred got the short end of the stick. He probably ended up paying them to leave just like the other British kings had done. The Vikings went back to Mercia after this, giving Wessex a much-needed break. This break only lasted for about 5 years though, because in 876, guess who's back? Now, this Viking band actually had different leaders than the last one did, and the most famous of these was Guthrum, and we'll hear quite a bit about him coming up here. But the town of Wareham was the first to fall this time. Alfred trapped the Vikings inside the walls, but it was too strong to take by storm. And starving them out wasn't an option, simply because it would take too long. You see, the Saxons back then did not have what we call a standing army. And a standing army is an army made up of men that fight for a living. Being a soldier is their job. Instead, the armies of the Saxons were mostly made up of farmers, blacksmiths, and all other kinds of craftsmen. They could leave their homes for a short time to fight, but if a war was taking too long, they would simply return home. They were worried about their families, and they had other work that they had to do. So for Alfred, taking the town of Wareham by siege just wasn't an option. So it kind of turned into a stalemate, and another temporary peace was made. But this time, instead of Alfred paying the Vikings money, he and the Vikings exchanged hostages and swore an oath that they wouldn't attack each other. And to make the oath more binding, Alfred even insisted that it be sworn on Thor's ring, which was an item considered sacred to the Norsemen. And it didn't work. Guthrum decided to play dirty, and he murdered all the hostages and took his army even deeper into Wessex, this time to the city of Exeter. And Alfred was furious. He surrounded the city with an even bigger army, this time cutting off the Vikings from their ships in the port. Guthrum simply laughed at this, since he was expecting a big fleet of reinforcements. But when a storm suddenly came and blew the coming ships off course, his confidence evaporated. He made another treaty with Alfred, this time keeping the agreement and going back to Mercia. So a year after this, everybody's kind of relaxing again, and Alfred is celebrating Christmas at Chippenham, which is the kingdom's capital. Everyone was eating, drinking, and paying absolutely no attention to the boarders, when, what do you know, the Vikings come busting in, killing everybody. Yep, Guthrum was back, and his surprise attack was highly effective. Everything was thrown into confusion, and the king barely escaped with his life. He and a few faithful followers took refuge in the swamps of Somerset. With the capital taken, the kingdom was practically won. Guthrum scared and bribed many of the Wessex ealdormen into working for him. Some of them ran away to other countries. But not all the nobles forsook their king. There were still many who remained loyal, but their power was limited. The Vikings were too many, and there was little they could do to help Alfred. But if the land was conquered, Alfred was not. He and an ever-growing band of true Wessex men made their base on the island of Athelney. And, of course, this wasn't an island like those we see in the ocean. This island was in the middle of the swamp. And it actually doesn't exist anymore since the swamps of Somerset have been drained for use as farmland. But from Athelney, the king and his men waged a guerrilla war against the Vikings. And just to explain the concept of guerrilla warfare, it's all about sneaking up on your enemy when he least expects it, striking, and then taking off before he can fight back. It's a very old tactic and highly effective to use when you're a little army fighting against a really big one. As long as Alfred was alive, Guthrum had no hope of ruling Wessex in peace.